Greetings, citizens! You're now trapped in the nerd cage with your hosts Mark and Jay. We hope you have a smashing good time.
It's holiday season. Hello and welcome. That's right, you're trapped in Nerd Cage Live. This ain't just a reaction show, but a debate show and a live discussion on everything that makes people like you and I tick. So thank you for joining us tonight. Please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm your co-host, Jay St. G, coming to you live from Syracuse, New York. And always with me, my man, the Fiend from Louisville, the Warrior from Wakanda, Mark Withers. Introduce our guest, man.
Hey man, what's going on? Super excited to be here as usual. And yes, today we have a very special episode for you because we have our extended family here with us from NerdCage Live. From Off the Beaten Podcast, we have Dion McGill. How are you, sir?
I'm great. So happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. And we also have voice actor extraordinaire and the voice to our intro and outro, Matthew Farden. How are you, sir?
I am good. Let's get ready to NerdCage Live.
History's being made right now. You're the first ever guest on the podcast.
Right. Normally we have guests on the live stream that we do every Thursday, but as far as the podcast is concerned, you guys are the very first guests, and we can't think of a more fitting set of guests to sort of help us out with this particular episode. Now, as far as the episode itself, this look back that we're doing today, we are actually talking about the 30th anniversary of the family classic, the Christmas classic, Home Alone. Now, I want to know what you guys think of this movie because I know what I think because I was a little bit older when it came out. You guys were kids. So I want to know exactly how this movie sort of affected you guys. Like how does it touch you guys?
Who wants to go first?
You go ahead, Matthew.
Oh, all right. Well, man, I mean, 30 years ago. Yeah, so to put it into perspective, I was born 1991. I came out a year after this came out.
Wow.
So yeah, that puts it into context. I remember. I think it was 5, 6, or 7. It was between 5 and 7, I think, was the first time my parents showed it to us. My brother had just been born. So I remember watching on Christmas. I remember being my dad and my mom and I were in our PJs Christmas morning with the dog, and we were just watching on the old JVC TV, and I was just like, it was funny. I liked it. I guess especially because being around the age where Kevin McCallister is you can kind of just you're relating more with him, stupid parents. I don't like this. I just want to be on my own. And of course, my first introduction to not just the great Joe Pesci, but also I'm blanking.
Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern, yeah, I can't believe I did that. Yeah, Daniel Stern. So the great Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci, and I just had such a blast. I had such a blast watching the film, and it was interesting. I mean, I'll admit I haven't watched it in a very long time. Of course, getting older, I can understand why it would appeal to the younger audiences, but I will admit it is still a great family movie, and I can see where a lot of people, even as they get older, still love watching it. Once in a while, I'll still watch it for Christmas. I mean, my family and I still watch Christmas Vacation as our tradition, our traditional family comedy. But I love Home Alone. I love the cast of characters. I love the premise. Even though it's got plot holes here and there, but it's one of those.
We will get to that.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna jump the gun, but it's a popcorn movie. You just watch it. It's hilarious. Kevin's being a little, he's basically being a little shit, and it's and it's fun. I like it. So,
all right. What are your thoughts, Dion?
Yeah, I actually before we became recording, I mentioned I watched it this morning because it'd been a while. When this movie came out, I would have been 11, and I watched it this morning. I don't, and if you ever ask me about like things like this, I never remember when I first, like, I don't remember first seeing the movie. I'm certain I saw it in the theater because I had an older sister. So any movies that were kind of like big releases, she'd take me to the movie to see. So I'm sure that she took me, and I'm sure I enjoyed it. Over time, the thing that kind of grabs me most, and it was funny because just watching it this morning and those opening credits, I was like, oh man, this is a John Hughes movie, baby. And John Hughes movies have like a special, because I grew up watching John Hughes movies, right? Like I've seen like even the ones that aren't popular, and John Hughes was just a master at capturing emotions. And it's funny because to me, I've never been able to, even today as an adult, I can't relate to anything in John Hughes movies other than those universal truths about like kids not getting along with their parents or whatever, Right. There's all these kids that live in this like, these rich neighborhoods that have cars, like, and sneaking off to places. I'm like, man, my mom would have beat me 50 Shades of Blue. Like that don't happen in my house. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like watching this morning, Kevin, something like in the early scenes when Kevin's like, I hate you and I hate my mom would have like put me through a wall. G, I can't relate. But like John Hughes was just a master at capturing emotions in these moments. And so watching it today, I was just like, I get why I like the movie. As Matt mentioned, it has some, like, as an adult now, especially, I'm like, it's got some plot holes. It's got some things you're like, but but it's fun and it's funny. I still like it. It's not a movie I probably even watch every year. Kind of my the movie I love watching every year is Scrooged. That's my Christmas movie. But I love the film. It's fun, it's funny, and I think it's one of those movies that generationally, depending on when you watch it, you kind of relate to the movie differently and the characters differently. Like now, as a parent and adult myself, I'm like, damn, like I'm glad my kids don't act like this, I've done a good job as a parent, that's like kind of how I look at it now. So, but it's great to revisit it. And it definitely brought back like just in my mind, just nostalgic feelings, and I'm like, oh, this is such a cool movie, and especially like who has not quoted, keep the change, you filthy animal, like I remember like almost 2 years of time, I would say that to everyone about anything, like keep the change,
leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out.
Yes.
Oh wow, you sound exactly like him.
Yeah. Calling your friends snakes, come here snakes, like that's just, it was such a cool thing. So yeah, I enjoyed it and it's great to revisit it.
Hey, so Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
I love this movie. This is still my favorite Christmas movie. And hold on, I want everybody to see my sweater.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
One of the best lines ever. That's just the thing. There's those one-liners. There's the slapstick. And again, you got the John C. Hughes element in there. This is a coming-of-age movie. You can relate to Kevin. Everyone has had that older brother, older sibling, or cousins that you just, that just got under your skin and just makes you like, oh, I'm just tired of my family. But at the end of the day, the one thing I love was this movie executes so beautifully is this Christmas movie is about family. It's about the most important thing in the holidays is your family, not Santa Claus, not all the gifts, not everything else. It's about family, and that's the beautiful thing. That's why everybody can relate to this, no matter what your background is. Now, the other thing, some cool elements is the director, Chris Columbus,
right,
brought us Harry Potter movies. And then, of course, you have an excellent score from John Williams. We don't even go. The John Williams, the name itself alone, you should know all the movies that he's scored and stuff. And it's like
such a turn of the century combo. You've got Hughes, Williams, and Columbus. It's just like, man, what a trifecta to go with that. I did notice though, Columbus he seems to go in twos. Because he directed the first and the second one, and then he did the first and the second Harry Potter. So he seems to have like a good streak with like twos.
Right. And the interesting thing about this, about that part is that Chris Columbus was not the original intended director. So there was another director that was sort of on board in the infancy of like the movie when it was being developed.
Yeah.
But, you know, as there were sort of delays and sort of things that were happening at Warner Brothers, they lost that director to another film. And it just happened that Chris Columbus, who was on National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, decided to quit that movie halfway through because he was having issues with Chevy Chase. So they had
surprise.
They had this big dust up, and then he wound up leaving that project, and suddenly he became available. And so when John Hughes was looking for a replacement director, he just happened to come up and was like, perfect choice. And so he grabbed him, and that wound up being sort of the winning combination there.
Yes. So I was just turning 4 when the movie came out, and here's the thing. I'll be completely honest with everybody here. My parents took me, my mother took me to see it in Syracuse, in the movie theater, and I fell asleep. But I ended up catching it on home video. The movie blew up. Okay, when this movie came out, did really anybody expect it to be a hit? Because Mark, you told me off camera that it was a pretty small budget.
Right. So a little history behind that is that when John Hughes first approached Warner Brothers to do this movie,
I thought it was Fox.
Here's the story behind that.
Okay.
So originally, he pitched this movie to Warner Brothers. They were interested in doing it, but they gave him sort of a proviso, like, okay, the caveat is that you have to keep this under $10 million. So he agreed to that, but sort of under cover of darkness, he had kind of sneaked a script over to 20th Century Fox saying, hey, if there's a turnaround with this movie and if something kind of goes wrong, would you be interested in financing it? They sort of agreed to go ahead and do that. But he kept on with Warner Brothers. They started their production, and within a short amount of time, the movie was already over budget. They were already at like 14.5 million, and they needed more money. So Warner Brothers wanted them to sort of slash their budget, sort of like make changes to sort of make things fit. They refused. And so they stepped in, the executive stepped in and halted production, not knowing that Fox was waiting in the wings. And then production just resumed from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, Mark's spitting the facts, man.
It's amazing the histories behind like all these like iconic classic movies, you know, especially like with Back to the Future and like a bunch of them. It's amazing what type of production hell that a lot of them had to go through.
Right.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And see, as a kid, I just loved like the one-liners, okay? You know, like the Buzz, your girlfriend, and you guys give up, you're thirsty for more. Oh, hey, you better come pound me, you know, like stuff like that. And we would quote that stuff in school. We'd quote that in Boy Scouts and everything else. You know, I'd be watching this on home video every year, you know, with my family. And here's the thing. Yeah, as a kid, like the besides the one, there's the traps, okay? Everyone talks about the traps, and the traps are amazing. They're funny. It's slapstick. It's goofy. It's unrealistic, but it's great. The second one obviously took it to the next level with the traps, but the traps is what you remember. But then as you get older, and as watching as an adult this morning, there's those adult jokes in there that you don't catch as a kid that you laugh at, and you can enjoy the movie as a whole. Okay.
Yep.
You enjoy the not just the traps. You enjoy the movie as a whole, and it's just so funny. And the characters in the movie. And you see, as a kid, like to me, like it was the Wet Bandits that made the movie to me. But as I get older, it's the other characters in the family there that make me laugh so hard.
Right.
Like Buzz, the asshole brother. That, you know, everyone's had that older sibling that just terrorized you. But then, all right, Matt, cue it up. But the other character I love in this movie that makes me laugh in both movies that no one talks about enough is that goddamn Uncle Frank. That I know you're just waiting to say it. Say it. Look what you did, you little jerk. He's such an awful uncle. Like, oh my god. Yeah. I'm sure everyone's got that one family member, that one that either whether if it's like a cousin or uncle that just that one like that you just can't stand. And then like rewatching it, like I laugh so hard. Like so that one scene where Kevin goes up to that fake Santa who's like, you know, getting a parking ticket.
Oh,
and he goes, listen, I know you talked to Santa Claus. Can you just ask him to bring my family back? And if he has enough time, Uncle Frank too.
Yeah. Fun fact about Uncle Frank is that part was written specifically for Kelsey Grammer. And was originally
why'd you tell me that?
Was supposed to be Uncle Frank, but there was a scheduling problem and he couldn't do the movie. And so they got this other actor who wound up just being perfect for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but like he's the cheapskate. He grabs all the pizzas like, oh yeah, my brother's gonna take care of it. And then he's on the airplane. He's on the airplane and he's like, oh my God, this is real diamond silverware. He's like, put it in your purse. Put it in your purse.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. Like, no one talks about Uncle Frank. Like, Uncle Frank is just like, it's just awesome in that movie. As much as you want to hate him, as much as you want to like sympathize for Kevin, you know, and of course the other thing, like, Fuller, easy on the Pepsi.
Oh my God.
Very young Kieran Culkin, who's now a star in his own right on HBO's Succession. Excellent actor. He's grown up to become like an amazing force on his own. But yeah, and that, I mean, the big disappointment for me is that he has like no lines in that entire movie. You just see him, like the one scene where his face gets smushed against the wall by the chair.
Oh yeah. And they're like, oh my God. Oh. And he's like, ah.
Mark, I'm petrified to ask you anything right now because I feel like you're like waiting to Mark. Okay, I know you're older than us, right. And I know like you rewatched it over the weekend and you were messaging me. So Mark, I'm sure you're ready to like just crush on my childhood dreams right now. How do you feel about the movie overall?
Okay, so let me preface this with a couple things, right? So I have a hard and fast policy to sort of not yuck on anybody else's yum, right? So, you know, that aside, you know, I also need to preface this by saying that while most people who adore this movie were children, I was 19 years old when it came out. And so it wasn't a movie that I rushed out to see in theaters. And when I finally did see it, like on TV, it didn't like impress me all that much, right? Like I wasn't all that moved for it. I don't have like a big nostalgic connection to it. But the other side of that is that I do recognize that the performances in it are all great. You know, I think that Joe Pesci really steals the show. And also, you know, a very small but very important character is the character that John Candy plays. You know, I just thought that I really wish that he was in that movie a lot more. But I mean, he was just like, I just really thought he was awesome in it. And, a fun fact about that is that he improvised all of those scenes that he was in. That was 100% improvisation.
So the funeral thing that he was referenced, he just went
all on the fly. All on the fly. He did that. He was available he was available for one day, and he had been friends with John Hughes, and I guess they had bonded over Uncle Buck and stuff like that.
Yeah, because Macaulay Culkin was in that too.
Right, and so he agreed to do the movie he agreed to appear in the movie for free, but you can't really because of SAG rules. You have to get paid scale at least. So he did the movie for $414 under the condition that he could improv all of his lines. And so everything that you see there, he just created on the fly. I mean, the guy was just magic. You know what I mean? Like he to me, he's like the best part of that movie, even though he's the smallest part, you know? And just overall, I have like a tremendous respect for this movie and sort of what it has become, like in terms of nostalgia, in terms of it being the Christmas movie that it is. Mm-hmm. It is, you know, it does have that aspect of it that sort of hits you in the feels, particularly with the old man, who everybody thinks is a serial killer.
Old man Marley.
Right, Old Man Marley, and you find out the whole, you know, the deal with him being estranged from his family, and then, you know, him being reunited with his family at the end. You know, I think that little scenes like that, you know, the little finishing touches like that are what really make that movie special and what make it a memorable movie for adults, for people who are older you know what I mean, that saw that movie before, you know, their adolescence, or after their adolescence, I should say.
Mm-hmm. It's a perfect. And why this movie will always hold up with every single generation, because it's the perfect Christmas story, because it basically shows that life isn't perfect. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, different areas, different things are happening, but at the end of the movie, what I love, and especially how Hughes is really good at, like what Dion was saying about, you know, getting those human elements and really showing the human condition and everything. Like, I love how at the end it just buttons it right up. You know,
Right.
The family comes back, they're happy, they're arresting the guy. The policemen are like, well, we can go home for Christmas now, and and then the old man's reunited with his family, and it just shows, like, I love how they put that button. I mean, if anybody hasn't seen it, sorry, spoilers. This movie's been out for
It's only been out for 30 years.
30 years. I feel old.
But it just encompasses that nobody's perfect, but when it comes to Christmas, everybody should have a good Christmas. Everybody should come together and just realize it's a time, regardless of your religious background or whatever it is. It's just a holiday season where everyone comes together and just is like one unit. And I love how they button that up with the perfect comedic timing and just like the tropes, and it's great. I just love it. And of course, because those are the two things. One, John Candy playing the clarinet, and two, the old man getting Kevin down from it and going, come on, let's get you home.
Okay, we gotta talk about the fan theories. Okay, this is what I was excited for, because this is where I really get to let loose with you guys. So there are so many fan theories that developed over the years, thanks to the internet, about this movie, and you can watch this movie with different perspectives. But we just talked about John Candy's character and the old man. I'm going to get to that right off the bat. I'm going to start with those two because we were just fresh off that topic.
Okay.
So, fun fact, there's a fan theory out there, and it's not a bad one, that John Candy is Satan. Hear me out. It's not a bad theory. So she's at the Scranton airport, and she's like, I would sell my soul to the devil himself to get to my son. And all of a sudden, whoa, here comes John Candy, polka polka, and
this polka's the devil.
Well, no, that's just the thing. Because hear me out. The devil, if in the Bible, like they said that the devil's instrument, his preference of instrument is a wind instrument. The devil plays wind instruments. That's what it's like in religious lore.
So someone should tell Charlie Daniels that, because apparently the devil plays the fiddle.
Well, that's why he lost, because he didn't battle a clarinet player. He battled a fiddler, and that he wasn't proficient.
He wasn't good enough.
I'm just saying, something to think about. She sells her soul to the devil, who happens to be right there, and he plays a wind instrument. Two, keep it in the religious stuff here. That old man Marley is Jesus Christ. And because you see the Band-Aid on his hand where Christ had the nail hammered through his hand.
Oh, we're getting deep.
Woo, yeah. Wow. We're cooking with butter now.
No pun intended.
I mean, I love both of them, but man, that's
See, you're thinking now. You're thinking now. Now you're like thinking to yourself now, like, oh my God, it's making sense now.
That's a lot to take in.
He talks to Kevin, like Kevin didn't talk to him until he was in the church.
Yeah,
that's
true.
the other thing too.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Band-Aid on the hand, he finally talks to him in the church, and he's the one that kind of guides Kevin like back, about his family, how family's important and stuff. So yeah. I'm just saying, it's a fan theory. I just think it's a really it's a fun fan theory. It's not cold hard fact. It hasn't been confirmed by any of the writers or the studio. It's just one of many fun fan theories about Home Alone. That's what makes this movie so magical, because you could watch it with different perspectives with the fan theories that are out there.
Now that makes, and I don't want to say it makes sense, but it kind of coincides with like a question that I had about the John Candy scenes, right? So when I was rewatching it the other day, like one thing that really bugged me was that John Candy just came out of the blue. Like he overheard Captain O'Hara's character like talk about like how much she needed to get home, and then he just like volunteers to like, you know what I mean? I couldn't help but overhear.
Because she sold her soul to the devil.
Right. And I'm saying like the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, what's in it for him? Like, well, you know what I mean? Like, why is he doing this? You know what I mean? And that's never they never like fleshed that out. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, well, we're going to Milwaukee, Chicago's on the way. Like, if you had to drive from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Milwaukee, you're not really wanting to make a lot of stops. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like,
that's a long ass drive.
Why
that's
is he
at least 14 hours?
Yeah. So yeah, the whole time I was just like, well, what's really in it for him? Like, are they going to reveal that? And they never did. But your theory kind of like makes it make sense to me.
I wish I could take credit for that theory. I really wish I could take credit for that. It's not one I came up with my own. I wish I could come up with that one on my own. Now here's
what happened. I was just gonna say, here's what happened. So he drops it off. They're in a big ass panel wagon, or in like one of those U-Hauls. He's with all these guys. I personally think so. They have Christmas, then they go away for a second. He pulls back coming through, and then they just ransack the house, and they already have the van. The end.
How it should have ended.
If they were actually just con artists. They were just looking for. They just wanted to help like rich people out, and then find out where they went home.
We just turned Good Samaritans into thieves in like 10 seconds. It was like
2 seconds. Yeah,
that's what I do best. The end.
Oh, no.
Anyways, you were saying, Jay.
Well, no, I want to ask Dion because he's the Chicago native. I want to know, like, have you been to that house, and have you had any stories to tell us about, like, the making of the movie, or you know anything about that house where the movie primarily takes place in?
So most of the John Hughes movies occur in Winnetka.
Right.
I've actually been to Winnetka twice, and both of those have actually been by bike. The one thing I'll tell you about Winnetka is you have to pay to get on the beaches in Winnetka. And that's about all I ever tell somebody about Winnetka. Like, it's not a neighborhood I hang out in. So I've actually never been to the house because it's opposite the side of Chicago that I live on. And even I used to work in Evanston. So Evanston is just south of Winnetka. But it's just, it's that, you know, the whole area is called the Gold Coast. It's very money. And I don't, and I mean, just the reality is I've never really felt comfortable. Even the times I've been in Winnetka, I'm like, oh, let's go. You know, it's just not a part of town I venture to. And it's interesting because I actually went on Google Earth the other day just to like look. I was like, oh, let me look at the house. You can't even see it on Google Maps. It's blurred out, the entire property. So when you go on it, so they, you know, there's a fence now. So the house is surrounded by a fence. It has tons of tree cover. But you actually can't even see it on Google Earth or Google Maps. It's completely blurred out. So I told myself that I am going to go see it at some point. I'm assuming probably maybe during the holiday. I'm assuming that neighborhood has a lot of Christmas lights. So I'm thinking maybe I'll take a drive up there during the winter and check it out this year because I've actually never been.
I mean, that thing is a house.
You do
that's
that,
a mansion, dude. That's a massive house, dude.
Yeah.
If you look at the block that it's on, there's a lot of them.
I just love that one line. Remember Buzz with that one line? He's just like, listen, who cares if Kevin's home alone, okay? We live in the most boring neighborhood where nothing ever happens.
Exactly.
And he's telling the truth. I'm sure exactly what nothing happens.
That writing is just magnifique.
Nothing happened. And, you know, and I don't ever say any of that to say it's a bad neighborhood or anything like that. I was actually doing some reading where Chris Columbus did like set up office was actually at the old high school, and that's New Trier. And if you know anything about like high schools, I used to be an educator. New Trier is one of the best schools in the entire country, you know, so it's a nice community. But it's very upscale. You know, it's not somewhere I'm gonna live. So
to be honest, like
not with that attitude.
Come on, Dion. Positive.
I love it.
Okay, so you guys ready for some fun trivia? I got a couple of them for you guys. Maybe you guys knew this, maybe you guys didn't. Maybe whoever's listening, if you guys know this, great. If you didn't, you're gonna learn something new today. So I got two fun facts about some of the tidbits during the film of the movie. So one of the funniest obnoxious scenes is the scene where Kevin puts the tarantula on Marv's face.
Right.
So when he screamed, he didn't actually scream. He dubbed his own scream into the movie there because if he screamed, the tarantula would have reacted.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That makes sense.
that's actually a fake. That's actually his scream is dubbed in.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that scream is so fabulous, though. It's like it builds. It's like delayed. It's like, and you just see his face light. Like that is one of those great moments of acting. You know, it's just like yes, you know.
Daniel Stern is one of the few on-camera actors, and I will go to the grave with this, who can literally perfect like scared. Like 100%, like he can encapsulate, you know, males, females, like everybody's like generalized reaction, like a genuine reaction if a tarantula was on their face or if something happened. Like every time he would do that, and he's just like, and just the screams that he does, and he's like, oh my god, it's like that right there, exactly, Dion. That is like perfect acting, and to be honest, I understand it's a comedy, and a lot of comedies don't get awarded, you know, a lot of awards and stuff like that, but Daniel Stern should have gotten an Oscar for that. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern should have gotten Oscars for those performances.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got one more fun fact to spit at you because I got the sweater on. So the famous Buzz Your Girlfriend scene.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the picture of his girlfriend there, again, not to put anybody down, but it was actually a boy in a wig because they didn't want to they didn't want to offend a girl,
Right.
So you know, then when they want to, you know, really hurt like, you know, any girl that was going to pose for a picture and be insulted like that. So it's actually the girlfriend you see in the picture frame. There's actually a boy in a wig.
Oh wow.
I actually have heard that before, and there's something about that just like I'm definitely a John Hughes fanboy, always will be. There's something about that, it totally even makes it more endearing that he was like, there's no way we could take a teenage girl and just like totally call her a dog, you know, like we just can't do it. So what do we do? And then they're like, let's put a wig on that kid. And it's like, oh,
I should have just.
There's just something about it that just makes me go, John got it though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He really got it.
I hope that kid now adult is listening right now because we would love to have you on the show to talk about that, how that came about.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Right.
That'd be funny if they did a blooper, like if they did a behind the scenes at the end of it, and they actually did like a photo shoot with like Pesci in the wig. That would have been hilarious. Just seeing him, and you see the gold tooth in his smile.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Speaking of Pesci, he's another one that almost wasn't in the movie. So that role that he plays was actually written for Robert De Niro. And Robert De Niro turned the movie down. They then offered it to John Lovitz. John Lovitz couldn't do the movie. And so they offered it to a couple of other different actors. And eventually they got to Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci accepted the role, but he didn't particularly like the script. Like he had problems with the script, and he also had issues with the call time. So normally, because you're working with children, there's a rule, and I'm sure that you know this, you know a little bit about this, Matt. When you're working with children, you can't do certain scenes past 10 p.m. Like you have to stop production. So in order to do some of those scenes, you have to have a very early call time, like 7 a.m. or maybe before that. Pesci didn't want to do anything before 9 a.m. And so it caused this massive conflict to where he almost didn't get the role, or he may have gotten the role, but I think he became like, he got really close to being fired. But eventually they worked everything out to where they could kind of change the call time, but then basically expand the production time from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, which then caused this other domino effect where Daniel Stern was like, well, if we're going to do 8 weeks instead of 6 weeks, I want more money. So he got fired from the production. They brought in Daniel Roebuck, who's another comedic actor, but he had problems with Joe Pesci. And so they got rid of him and got Daniel Stern back and worked out whatever they needed to work out so that they could have him for the 8 weeks. And that's how that all came about.
Damn, Mark! Wow, does his homework every
Mark
time.
does his homework, man. That is, yes.
I am a nerd. cents, man. So like, when we call this Nerd Cage Live, my picture is under the nerd part.
He's more of a nerd. I'm in the film industry, and he's more of a nerd. I didn't even know half this stuff, and I usually know like random tidbits and stuff. So it's like it's really refreshing to hear Mark talk about that. Like Mark's always on top of the shit.
Thank you.
I just can't stop thinking about Joe Pesci they're like, Joe, there's kids in the movie. He's like, screw them kids. I ain't coming before 9.
Not coming before 9. We film when I
It's just so funny because
I gotta be on set at 7 in the morning.
Wow. Well, I'm just saying, like, De Niro and Pesci were fresh off of Goodfellas. Goodfellas
Right.
came out the same year.
Right. Exactly. And that might be how they ended up talking about Joe Pesci, because they were probably, just throwing out actors, and they probably saw them in scenes together and thought about that.
That would have been the weirdest thing. Like that would have been the weirdest thing if Robert De Niro was that character, especially when he's like slides down the stairs and stuff like that.
Right.
It'd just be so fucking weird. It would just be weird because he'd just be like, "Oh, my back, my back. Oh, the damn kids. Hey, kid, come on, let me in the house."
Matthew Farden, everybody. Voice actor in there. Give it up.
Well, that's what I do.
But I would have loved to have seen that now. Thinking about it now, like I'm like, oh, I would have loved to have seen that. Like, I don't know if he did any comedic acting early in his career, but when you get like later to Meet the Fockers, like I actually really enjoy seeing De Niro do comedy. Like it's because he does have those like kind of like, it's always like a dry comedy, right? He's not doing slapstick. And so it would have been very interesting to see him like doing those stunts and those moments where you just kind of like, he'd have been like, I'm going to kill this kid. But it would have been kind of like,
but it would be even more, exactly. But it'd be more suspicious when Kevin's father's there and he's just like, oh, I see. So you're just like going to house and stuff like that. And he just goes, your house is in good hands. It's like, I don't know if I trust him even more. I mean, obviously in the thing with Pesci still is just, he's like, don't worry, it's in good hands. And then he does the little thing. Like, it's whatever, but it would just be even like more like obvious that like, he's like, case in the joint.
To be continued.
Maybe I could picture him in the back room. Maybe.
Ooh, trying to get out of the nerd cage, are ya? Well, before you go, hit that subscribe button. And if you're really intrigued, ring that bell. Thank you for dropping by. Until next time, tell everyone you know about NerdCage Live!